When disaster strikes and family and friends are coming to your house to eat, what are you going to feed them? This is part 2 of a 4-part series entitled, Who's Coming to Dinner? This one focuses on food, where it's going to come from, who's going to cook it, and what are you going to do with those picky eaters? Hey, Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Kylene, and today we are back with Dr. Kyle Christensen. And in our last episode, we talked about who's coming for dinner, who's going to show up at your door during a crisis and need help, and how should you manage that? Well, today we're going to talk about the second area, which is food. Kyle, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and let's talk food in a crisis.
Sure. And so, again, my name is Dr. Kyle Christensen, practicing chiropractor, and again, interested in preparedness. The first question we addressed was who's coming to dinner. The next is what's for dinner, and those that are familiar with the prepping world realize, boy, you could go so many different directions in food preparation. And one of the questions that you need to address right off the bat is, how many meals are you serving per day? Are you going to do the 3 square meals? Or are you going to do what many people are doing today, intermittent fasting? Are you going to provide 2 meals per day? So often people are so concerned with having enough. And what we found is that the body is very adaptable. And people can adapt very easily to 2 meals, per day. And for us, that's kind of what we've decided, especially if you're in the kitchen and you're prepping. 2 meals a day is much more manageable than 3. And so that's one of the things that we've done.
Can I get your thoughts on children with that? Young children?
So here's the thing is there's always exceptions. And so if you're dealing, let's say, with people with, special needs, if you're dealing with young children, if you're dealing with pregnant or nursing mothers, do they need to follow those guidelines? I personally say no. I mean, those that need more, we're going to be sensitive to that. The other issue is who gets to eat what? And so how do you deal with a picky eater? If you're making, community soup for dinner and the person doesn't want soup, they want their peanut butter and jelly sandwich. How do you handle that? Right. And so,
Sure.
So let's say you get the person that comes in and says, I'm keto, or I just do carnivore, and they want to eat all the meat because they want to stick to their carnivore diet because they really like meat. I know years ago when we bought a food freeze dryer, the first thing that we really focused on is the proteins. And so we were freeze drying a lot of meat, a lot of eggs, a lot of those protein foods, because many preppers, we focus on the grains, we focus on the beans, we focus on those types of things. And so, the meat often is kind of a nicety. It's a luxury. And so how do you accommodate people with their dietary preferences? That could be a big issue.
I can see that being huge because there's such a diversity out there. And, the me is saying, no, this is what's for dinner. This is what Dad always says, this is what's for dinner. If you don't like it, then come back tomorrow morning and there will be some breakfast. But, that may not always be the right way, but that would probably be my mode is, okay, this is what we've got. So you're going to have to roll with it.
And I look at the carnivore thing where I eat a higher protein diet, right? Because I feel like my body does better with higher protein. But is it fair for me to take this limited amount of protein that we have for this whole group and eat it when they all need some of it, right? We have to be careful with the resources that we have. But my chocolate is exempt. That is mine. No matter how anybody needs it.
It comes into, are you going to have an open kitchen? Somebody wanders in and says, I'm starving, I need something to eat. Well, dinner will be ready in an hour, but I'm hungry now. How do you deal with that? Do you have a free range kitchen, or do you have only set meals? How do you arrange that? And again, people will need to adapt.
That's why we need to have these thoughts and these discussions first. Figure all this out so it's not terribly painful on the fly.
Well, and the expectation is set up front.
Yeah.
Right? You will not get my chocolate. Don't think about my chocolate. Do not covet my chocolate.
I'm sensing that chocolate is an issue here.
She has a little
So
bit.
here's the other issue. What if somebody has, for health reasons, legitimate health reasons, has, certain dietary, needs? For example, we know the person with type 1 diabetes, really from a survival, I don't want to have a heart attack issue, does better on a keto diet. Much better having those glucose fluctuations managed. The challenge is how do we cross these roads? And if one person gets this or that, how come nobody else gets that? And so there becomes a lot of emotion that can play into this.
Oh yeah, we have a daughter-in-law who is type 1 diabetic. And when I've talked to her, okay, what do we need to store for you, right? And pretty much it's protein. She has to have protein. And then she also has to have her carbs, because not only does it not, we don't want it to spike, but when she plummets, she has to have something to bring it out, right? Some concentrated sugar. And so, yeah, so we've really been looking at that because we adore this girl. Right.
And so anybody with special needs, whether it's they need special meds, they need, whatever it is, that needs to be taken into consideration. Here's another aspect that I think is interesting is, do you have enough dishes? When you had your family gather, I would bet dollars that you probably use some paper products and some disposable products.
Typically, yeah.
So you will win that bet, but I have a huge stack of melamine and regular in there because I am a prepper and I know that I will run out of paper plates. But these plastic ones, hopefully they don't break as easy, right? They're
melamine's pretty tough. One of the things that I've discovered is this wheat straw. Plates and cups and things, and what they do is they grind wheat straw into a fine powder, and they mix it with some sort of polymer that's not, that's BPA free and not toxic supposedly. And so for very inexpensive, you can get, a big stack of these plates and bowls and and dishes. In our family, we decided that it really is nice having metal utensils. And so you can buy, knives and forks and spoons at a pretty cheap price. It seems like we spend maybe about $100 on buying all of this utensils and this, the plates and cups and bowls and we've got enough to feed, to handle, 60 people or so. But again,
that's good.
Thinking of these options. Do you have a stock pot big enough to make soup for 20 people or more? If you've got your 6-quart stock pot, that's not big enough.
Right.
So do you need to buy something additional that's going to be able to serve your needs?
And the serving bowls, right? Or the mixing bowls. The things that I do because I have a large family are very different from you can't cook at some of my kids' houses because they just have these little things.
And so we like these restaurant supply stores, and you can find them online, restaurant supplies, and you can get the huge stainless steel bowls and basically anything you need to run a restaurant at wholesale prices. And so to me that makes a lot of sense. One of the issues coming up with food is, again, the animals and the pets. If you've got dogs, if you've got cats, if you've got iguana, which I understand is quite tasty, um, then then you can, do you prepare for that? And one of the things that we've done in the past is raising rabbits. And rabbits makes excellent dog food. And so the point is often we want renewable sources. When we're raising rabbits, I remember at one point, gosh, we had 40 rabbits. And so that makes a source that's easy to feed. You feed them the weeds, they can provide a good source of protein.
Going along with all this, I assume we're talking about water here as well, and that's a huge issue of making sure that you have enough culinary water, sanitation water, and all these things. Give us your thoughts.
Well, again, water is life, and if you don't have clean water to drink and to cook with, that's the battle. The battle ends very, very quickly. And so, doing a rain catchment system, I think makes a lot of sense. Catch the rain, have a means to purify or filter, that water. We learn if the plumbing goes out, how are you going to flush your toilet? We'll get into that in when we talk about sanitation. But having a source of water, not only water that's stored, but water that can come in from another source. Not everybody has a well, and for those that do have a well, if the power goes out, how do you get water out of your well? Do you have a hand pump? We have one that's called a simple pump, and it's a hand pump that we could crank. I used it last night, and get water from the well. So the simple pump or the bison pump, I really like those.
There's so many things to think about with the food aspect of it, and we've talked mostly about kind of preparing it and feeding it. But if we don't have it stored in the first place, right? If you don't know how to use the food that you have stored, that's a whole nother challenge. We got to make sure that we store it. And personally, I think anybody who's here eating in my kitchen, it better be in my garden, helping me in my garden.
Exactly. And again, and one thing a lot of us have an issue with is properly rotating the food. We just added to our compost pile last night some graham crackers that went rancid. And so again, not only storing the food, but having it properly stored, keeping it away from pests. I bet most of us have thrown away, food storage that the mice have gotten to. Again, it's a matter of, making the mistakes, learning from your mistakes, and hopefully not repeating them.
And I think Mama made a really good point about a garden, and we bring this up a lot, but having a place to garden and the ability and the tools, and there will be some who will be very skilled at it, and that will be an important part of food production. Of course, that's a seasonal thing for us, but I think that's an important aspect.
And you can extend your season, with a greenhouse, for example. And so if you've got a greenhouse, you can grow some, radishes in weeks. You can grow, your greens. You can do microgreens. You can do sprouts. And so there's a lot that you can do to add that freshness to your diet. Many of us, we eat fresh every day, and we don't look forward to saying, oh gosh, I'm just going to have food that's been stored without anything fresh.
Thank you, Kyle. This has been amazing. And this was step 2 in our series. And the next one is on sanitation. Do you have any final words about food before we close this segment?
Do the best that you can. I mean, if you're not, in the practice of storing, food that could be used later, do what you can. And if you're going to grandma's house, throw what you got in the back of the car on your way.
Very good point, because grandma will know how to use it. We'll know how to do something with what you bring.
And stay away from Kylene's chocolate.
Yes.
Exactly.
It is actually locked in a safe. You may not believe me,
And
but
she
it's
speaks
true.
the truth.
It is
It's
true.
locked in
It
a
is
safe.
locked in the safe. Thank you so much, Dr. Christensen. We really appreciate that. And for our question of the day today, what's your favorite recipe that you could cook if everyone came for dinner using just stuff that you have stored in your pantry? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.